So this is what happens when you've had like a really long day at work. You end up filming in your pajamas, which is crazy. Hey y'all, it's Ashley Bookishrum and I am back with another video. As you can see by the title of this video, this is my being a librarian Q&A. So I was supposed to film this a long time ago, y'all. I just never had the time to film it, so now I am filming it and I am super excited to film it. So I know that I missed some questions, but for the most part I went through the video which was, I believe, a day in the life of a librarian, and there were a lot of people who asked me some questions, so I found about 8 of them that I wanted to answer in this video. Do not take this as a thing that I'll never answer any of your questions. If you still have questions after this, or if there's something else that piques your interest and you want to know more about it, leave it in the comment box below. This won't be the only time that I answer questions, but I kind of had to do this quickly because I know I was supposed to film this video a long time ago and I just have not gotten the opportunity to film it. So I just try to find as many questions as I can in the shortest amount of time possible. And these were the 8 questions that I did find. I hope you guys enjoy. As always, I am definitely looking forward to creating content in this. The series that I have going on, it takes a little bit more creativity, a little bit more topics for me to think about. However, hopefully going forward I will have some time. It is super crazy working as a full-time librarian and being a single mom, so bear with me. But let's jump into the questions. Question number 1. I was wondering how much what I major in my bachelor's degree matters if I want to become a librarian, and I still get into a MLS or MLIS program if I have a major that isn't related to being a librarian. So your bachelor's degree honestly has nothing to do with your master's of library information science. It's kind of just, I know that some programs are kind of like linked together where, you know, like once you get a like if you want to get a master's in accounting, it doesn't make sense for you not to have like a bachelor's in accounting. However, with Masters of Library Information Science, it's a little different. You have people who come from a lot of different backgrounds. I came from a bachelor's degree in history, which is not really applicable in anything. Having a bachelor's degree in history, like, it's nothing. It means nothing. So it definitely didn't hurt me, but I would definitely check with the program that you're applying to. So every program is not the same. They all have standards that they have to abide by. So they are ALA, which is the American Library Association accredited, but not every program is the same. So I would definitely double check their admission requirements to see if they have any particular things that they want you to major in. But I can only speak from my personal experience where at my school it did not matter what your background or what your bachelor's degree was in, or even if you had a master's degree in other areas. Okay, so question number 2 was how difficult is it to get a job in a public library, and how difficult is it to get your MLIS or MLS? Okay, so for the first part of this question, I think it varies by system. So some systems have very coveted jobs. Everybody wants to get in. Everybody wants to be a part of the library system. People really enjoy working in libraries once they hear about it. So it can be very competitive. And I think the downside to working in a library sometimes is that, or getting your foot in the door in a library, is that sometimes it requires experience post-degree, but then I don't know, it requires experience post-degree, but then it's also to get experience before you actually get your degree. So it's hard. It can be hard sometimes. I won't say that it's an easy field to get into, and that once you start, at least in my system, Not everybody has to have a master's of library science, but a lot of positions it can be preferred, and once again that changes system by system, but you can start off as like a library page or a library assistant, what we call an LA1 or an LA2, and even those classifications change by systems. I've seen systems that use like library generalist 1, 2, and 3, and then like librarian 1, 2, and 3, whereas we do like customer service associate, or we do librarian, or we do, you know, teen specialist. So the titles kind of change depending upon the system, but I won't say that 100% it is a super easy field to get into, because people who work for libraries love working for libraries and they don't like leaving. So when positions open up, a lot of people apply for them. I have seen situations where 300-400 people have applied for one position. It is crazy competitive, and you know, once you get your foot in the door though, it's really good because you build up all that experience, but I won't say that it's super easy. And the second part to that question is, you know, how difficult is it to get your MLS? Solely depends upon you. I worked full-time and went to graduate school full-time. It took a lot of time management, a lot of scheduling, a lot of being organized and being super dedicated to my studies. And I did graduate with a 4.0. I also did it while I was pregnant. So I won't say that it's easy to get it, but I think that that's solely dependent upon you as a person. And don't consider getting your MLS or MLIS a race to the finish line. Do what is best for you, because I know that like with me taking 3 graduate classes at one time and going to work full time, like it was a lot, but I know how much I can handle and I know how I can be organized, especially when it comes to academics. But if you're not that person that can keep that balance, I would think, you know, like maybe taking 1 or 2 classes at a time is best for you. I did finish my master's in 2 years. It was a 36 credit program, and I took my summers off, so I had to go full-time during the semesters in order to graduate in 2 years. But I know people who take like 2 classes each semester and then take like 1 class each summer session. So like I said, solely up to you. You finish at your own speed. Like, don't compete with anybody but yourself, like, because you know yourself better than anyone else, and you don't want to get into this program and not take advantage of all the resources and all the knowledge that you learn from your classmates and your professors, because you are trying to rush and hurry up and finish a degree that you can take your time with. Question number 3 is, how do libraries organize their materials? So a lot of these questions I've noticed are like very general and broad questions. So anytime a question is broad, I'm going to answer it in terms of my library system because that's what I'm most familiar with. So I think I've talked about this a little bit before. My library system no longer uses the Dewey Decimal System. We use an access system, meaning that all of our nonfiction books are actually labeled by categories. So we have categories like art, animals, history, law, literature, home improvement, health, sociology, sports. It's just a long list of categories, and then even in those categories there's subcategories. So like in craft and hobby you may have like needlework, and then under that you may have crochet, or you may have knitting. It just, and then the author's last name. So it's categorized like that. For our other collections, our children's books are labeled as C, our picture books are labeled as P, our teen books are listed as TF, teen fiction, then TNF, teen nonfiction, then mysteries M, fiction is F. We have urban, science fiction is SF, Western is W. We have paperbacks, which are labeled as PB. Then like our DVDs and all that stuff. So it's an extensive organization. And then if, you know, this question is meant to ask also an organization as far as like Building wise, it's up to the discretion, I think, of each system and how they want their library materials to be set up in their their respective locations. I don't have as much insight from a architectural standpoint, but just from like a collection development standpoint. So once again, this is one of those questions, whereas it's not a universal thing a lot. Every system kind of seems to do their own thing. They train their staff to know how to find stuff within their collection, and their patrons, of course, are going to be familiar with the classification system that they use. And that changes as well. And I will say this again, what I'm saying is from the perspective of a public librarian. I have never worked as an academic or a school librarian, so even that's different. Libraries are just super extensive, and it's a super complex profession and world to be a part of. And sometimes I think that people don't realize that, because all libraries don't function the same. All libraries in a system, like branches in a system, don't even necessarily function the same way, because they're serving different communities, and every community has this different personality, even if it's one whole system. All right, question number 4 is, where do you anticipate librarianship going as more and more technology is weaved into the industry? I definitely see libraries keeping up with trends. We have to, or else we run the risk of becoming extinct if we don't keep up with technological trends. We have done some very, very interesting things as far as like our ability to provide resources in different ways. I know before, a lot of and it's simple stuff, but just think about it, like libraries now have access to ebooks, audiobooks. My library even has access to a website where we stream movies, and it's so crazy. But I really do feel like as times change, so will libraries. Like libraries now are very big on maker spaces. I don't want to go too in-depth with maker spaces, because that's such a complex conversation to have. But maker spaces are definitely a huge thing in the library world right now. I see a lot of libraries now incorporating maker spaces. My library has a woodworking shop. They have podcasting equipment. They have a green screen. They now allow people to check out lighting kits and digital cameras. So like, things that are trendy and things that are super important to communities now, technologically, it definitely does translate in library worlds. Like, people come into libraries now and they're like, whoa, this is not the library that I was used to 20-30 years ago. It's not supposed to be the same. Library librarians are not even the same. We don't, you don't come in the building and we're like, shh, hush. We want people to engage in conversations and community building and networking. We do still have our quiet spaces, but I will always say that libraries do work very, very hard to keep up with the times. And there's a lot of research and efforts and individuals that are very, very dedicated to making sure that libraries stay on the forefront of technology, and that they are truly keeping up with people's needs. And I think, even broadening the question outside of technology is not just about technology. It's about addressing what our communities need to continue to function in this 21st century. So whatever they need, libraries are going to attempt to provide, because that's what we're there for. And I can't stand when people like libraries are obsolete, they're not needed. We are super needed, because I don't know where you can go anywhere and just check out like a lighting kit for free if you have a library card. Like, that to me, like, people need stuff like that, to start their own businesses, to fulfill their passions. Like, libraries are just super, super important. I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. Okay, so this question's a little bit more personal. I won't include the individual's name, but they may see that I'm answering their question. It says, I'm a part-time student and I don't have any experience in library science, but I would love to do an internship. For a while I was afraid to try out library work because I thought it was a little less active, but I can see now that it's not the case. I love the idea of distributing information and taking care of a large store. I'm just wondering if this is something that I should consider. Okay. So I want to reiterate that library work is not always just about working with the materials. I think a lot of people, I get people who still say this to me. They're like, oh, you work in a library? I would love to sit around and read all day. You guys know, if you follow this channel and you know me, I do not get to read like that. I am lucky. I have not, like, if I have a slow period of time, you know, and I have a lot of stuff that's already completed and it's a lull, maybe I may get some downtime to, you know, to read while I'm on the clock. But a lot of times I am reading for work. Second of all, right now is a very intense season because we're only a couple of months away from summer. I think people don't realize that libraries during the summer are like, it is the busiest time of year because kids are out of school and camps have started and we just have so much going on, and the prep work that goes into planning those 3 months is insane. We start prepping for that at the beginning of the year. So all that to say basically that it is not just moving materials around. It does happen, but it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of coordinating with other people. It is a lot of helping patrons one-on-one. So it can be active, but then sometimes it's not. It's a lot of times about that front-facing consumer interaction. It's all about customer service, honestly. So I wouldn't say that it's not something that you would enjoy, but I wouldn't go in thinking that it's just distribution and managing a large facility, because really it's about the people that come into the facility. Those interactions with the people in the community are the most important thing. And even when we look at our chain of command at work, not chain of command, but our chain of processes at work, people who are in the building always come first before the movement of any materials or information. Like, it's about assisting those individuals, if that means sitting at a computer with someone for 30 to 45 minutes to help them out. It's interesting. Question number 6 is, I heard that the library pays for each copy of an ebook, and you are absolutely right. And I kind of said that without the inflection, so it didn't come up as a question, but it was a question. Basically, is it true that libraries pay for each copy of an ebook? Yes, we do. And I talked about this a little bit in my video where I said, like, stop saying that libraries suck. A lot of people on BookTube say that, and I don't even like thinking about it because, like, it truly bothers me when people are like, oh, my library sucks, they don't have a good collection. Well, first of all, you should probably advocate for your library. Like, your local legislators are the ones who determine how much your library gets funding. So before you say that your library sucks, try doing something about it, because they don't not have materials because they don't want to have materials. They're not getting sufficient funding to have those materials because somebody in your community doesn't think that libraries are important. So using that terminology and saying that really makes my blood boil. And the reason why I made that video and talked a little bit about the accessibility of library materials is because we have had this huge thing with Macmillan. And I am kind of conflicted because I work on both ends. I work as a librarian in dealing with the issue with Macmillan, and then I work as a influencer. So it's twofold for me. But Macmillan established an embargo, essentially meaning that we could only check out, or we could only purchase one copy of a newly released book, and then we had to wait, I think, anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks before we could purchase other copies. And I think that first copy had to be purchased at full price. Now, if you think about that, what that means is that if you have a New York Times best-selling book, like the latest James Patterson book, I don't find him to be a very good writer, but whatever, that's beside the point. If he puts out a new book, right, you purchase the ebook copy. as a library, imagine how many people in your community, especially if you're a large system, you'll have 200-300 people on hold for that one book. And it creates accessibility issues because, you know, people are like, well, I'll just go and buy the book. Okay, well, everybody can't afford to buy ebooks or hardcover books because you know, it just, books are expensive. So people can't afford it. People don't have the space. So they come to their local library. But imagine how disappointing and how inaccessible it is to have to wait for 200 people to finish a book before you get access to it. It's horrible because there are big publishers who are saying that libraries are hurting authors and we're hurting the market because we buy a license to a book and we're not essentially paying full price for each and every time someone reads that book. But do know that it is a license. When a library buys an ebook, you're not buying the book for good and it's just circulating. They're licensed and essentially like leasing the book. And after a certain number of checkouts, they have to go and repurchase that book, y'all. So that's why it's such an interesting concept. Ebooks and e-audiobooks are very, very interesting. I mean, even with people who use Hoopla, I know a lot of people on BookTube use Hoopla. Hoopla also, libraries have to budget how many people are streaming this content and they have to pay for that. So none of that stuff is free, y'all. I wish I could disclose, but I'm not going to. How much money is spent in a collection budget? It is expensive. It is not easy to maintain, especially when it comes to ebooks and e-audiobooks. That's an expensive venture. So if your library has access to ebooks through like Libby or Overdrive or Hoopla, be thankful, because they're not just buying that stuff and it's theirs, they're licensing it out, and every time you and other patrons continue to read those books, they have to repurchase. So just so you know. Question number 7, or more of a statement, I would guess. I'd love to hear more about any tips you have for interviewing for a librarian position or how to set yourself apart in the application and interview process. So I have had 3 different library jobs in the past 4 years that I've been in a library system. I would definitely say be yourself. Do your research about any, and this is with any job, but you know, with libraries, do your research about the location that you're applying for, and then also the community. You have to show that you're invested in helping those that are in the community. Think about what type of programs you would want to instill in that community, because that's going to tell them a lot. Bring any special talents that you have, like anything that you're passionate about. Think about how your special talent can be used as a resource for that community. Like, I am an artist as well, which a lot of you guys don't know. I paint, I draw. That is a skill that I have, that I use to my advantage. I'm very, very creative. And that leads to very, very creative programming. I would definitely say, you know, you need to have some reader's advisory skills. So whether that's books or movies or whatever, you need to be able to recommend materials to customers that come in the door. Patrons, excuse me. I'm used to using customers. You need to be able to use that, those tools for patrons that do come in the door. I would also recommend having some answers prep for good customer service skills. Like, what would you do if you had a patron who came to your desk and they were pissed off? How do you handle a situation like that? You know, how do you handle a situation where you have a disagreement with coworkers? Some of the questions that you're probably going to get in the interview are going to be pretty standard, but then some of them are going to be library specific. So be prepared for that. If this is something that anybody needs me to delve further into, I can. I just think I need to think about that question a little bit more, because there's so many different scenarios that I think I could come up with that would probably help with an interview process. All right, and question number 8 is, I don't know if this question is already on your list, but how do libraries feel about book donations? How do they process them? Are donations useful or not used all that much? So once again, this is a very general question and I can only answer it in terms of my system. Library donations are excellent. Donate to your library. Books that you don't have, give them to your library, y'all. Please give them to your library. Libraries love library donations. From my knowledge, lots of libraries have a friends organization, and what these friends organizations do, and this is something I've seen not just in my system but several other systems in my state, what they do is they raise money on behalf of your library by collecting those donations and then selling them out at library book sales. So when library book sales happen, I know you guys have heard of them because a lot of people have been on BookTube, or you know, maybe you have friends or people on Facebook or social media or whatever talk about a library book sale that they've gone to. Those books that they sell at the library book sale are books that people have donated. So you know, when we fill up our bag for like a couple of dollars, super beneficial, because what ends up happening is when those books are donated, they're put in the library book sale, they're sold, and that money goes back to your library. And that money can go into any account. I know sometimes, and more than likely for most places, it goes into some type of programming budget. So that money is used for people to use to create better programs for the community. So all that stuff that you could do for your library for free, like woodworking classes, or you know, photography classes, or you know, movies with snacks and stuff like that, that comes from a programming budget. So it comes full circle. It's like paying it forward type of thing. So yes, if you can donate to your library, donate as much as you can to your library. And the last question that I have here is, also, this is one, it's a little bit personal too. I am terrible at math and I don't know how much math skills you need. What made you want to become a librarian, and what are the main skills you think you need to develop to be a successful librarian? Okay, so the first part of that question, I wanted to be a librarian because I like working with people. I don't know what it is. I don't know where that that came from. I don't really, most of my family members don't work with people one-on-one the way that I do, like with the public. But I love it. I love helping someone who comes in the door and they need someone just to be compassionate and kind and understanding. And you know, I deal with people who come in and like, I'm the only person that they'll get to talk to that day, because they may be alone or they may be lonely. I have people who come in who are struggling to get a job and they're depending on me to assist them in getting a job, and you know, filling out a job application or working on their resume. I have teens who come into my building and I may be the first friendly adult that they see in the day. I love helping kids learn to read, instilling the importance of literacy and the joy and love for books. I enjoy it. I love it. I think that communities need libraries, and I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else, y'all. I love working with people. I don't think it's as, because some people can read that as like a savior complex, and it's not a savior complex. I literally get a high. And I've never said this to anybody before, so this is kind of exclusive, but I literally get a high from helping people, from knowing that I can make someone else's day, knowing that I can help someone possibly get a job, encouraging and motivating people, and just helping people with their day-to-day activities. Like, it makes me feel so good. And I don't know any other job that's like that, you know. Plus I love books. I have a passion for books that's undeniable, that's almost obsessive in some ways. But I think that some skills that you need to have to be a successful librarian: passion. You got to be passionate about what you do, because as a librarian, you work with people all day, every day, up front and center, close proximity, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some days are good, and some days are rough. Some days can be super rough. I'm not going to paint this perfect picture, because you work with, in my case, you know, being a public librarian, I work with the public. I don't know who's coming through my doors on a daily basis, and that's also a high too, not knowing what's gonna happen, because every day is so different. But it can be hard. So you gotta be passionate about what you do. You gotta be flexible, because you don't know what every day is gonna look like. You get into a routine, don't get me wrong, but because you're dealing with different people every day, no day looks the same. So you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to learn, because new things happen every day in library systems. New literature comes out, new practices are developed. We have to keep changing, we evolve with the times. So you have to be willing to learn. You have to be compassionate. And this is, I think, in any library, whether you're academic, public, school, you have to be compassionate. You have to have that heart to help people, whether you're helping people in a public library, whether you're working with college students in an academic library, or whether, you know, you're working with kids, you know, school-age kids, or, you know, secondary school kids, and as a media specialist, you have to have compassion. You have to be kind, and you have to understand that you have to be kind to yourself too, because it's exhausting. I think a lot of people don't realize that being a librarian and being on the front end of librarianship, being forward facing towards patrons, is exhausting. Being this, hey, how are you? What can I help you with? Sure, you know, that energy, that let me help you with whatever you need help with, it's tiring. And I would also say, like, you know, you definitely have to learn how to separate your personal life from your work life. I think that's true in any job, but especially in customer service based jobs like librarianship. Being a librarian is very, 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 very much so about customer service, if you can't tell. Very much so about customer service. So when you work a customer service position, you have to divide the two areas of your life, your personal life and your work life, because what's happening in your personal life, you can't let bleed into your work life, because you have to, you're there to help people. And if you let whatever's going on in the background distract you, I don't think you're as effective of a helper to your community. So my goodness, it's not easy, but oh gosh, I love it, y'all. I can't see myself doing anything else for the rest of my life. Like, I have found my career, I have found my passion. I love what I do. And, you know, it's not the, you know, the highest paying jobs in the world. Like, you know, you're not gonna find too many people who work in libraries that are making six figures, but it's not about the money. Like, this is like, it's the safest drug that I could ever possibly take. And it sounds corny, but you know, this is what happens when you find a job that you really love and that you're super, super passionate about. So that answers that question. I was super long-winded with that one. But alright, y'all, that's it. Those are the 9 questions that I was able to kind of sift through, and some of those questions were actually like 2-part questions, so a little bit more. But if you have more questions or any thoughts and ideas, definitely drop them in the description box, not the description box, y'all, the comment box below. And I definitely want to film more in this series. Hopefully in the next coming weeks things will slow down a little bit for me, and I'll be able to think about this series a little bit more. But as always, like I said, ask as many questions as you want. I will try to be as transparent as I can be. Of course, you know, there's certain things that I can't disclose, but for the most part, it is like a lot of you guys are asking questions that I get on a daily basis from patrons that come through the door, so it's public knowledge. But as always, if you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in seeing more content from me, click the subscribe button. If you're interested in following me on social media, all my links will be down below in the description box. As always, I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and I hope to be back with another video soon. Bye.